Well, you only live once, maybe not. And this life right now might be all we've got. So let's contemplate the hereafter while we speculate with some laughter about this grim thing that happens to us all after that final curtain call. But before you take that final breath, let's laugh about.
Welcome to Let's Laugh About Death, the dramedy podcast that celebrates life while contemplating the inevitable. I'm your host, Tim Rooney, and I want to paint a picture for you. Imagine it's 2011, and I'm backstage at the Gathering of the Juggalos. I'm standing there, and I'm watching everything happening on stage, and I see Flava Flav walk by me, and he's got the clock and everything. And then I see this old woman walk by, and I'm like, who the hell was that? What was she doing on stage? And then it dawned on me, I was like, oh, that's Charlie Sheen. Then I'm talking to a producer with some friends and everything. We're talking to a producer, and it happens to be the producer for Insane Clown Posse, which are the guys that did this whole thing. They put on this whole event. And the producer and I and a couple other people are talking, and all of a sudden, out of nowhere, comes a golf cart. And on the golf cart is none other than Vanilla Ice. And it's surreal, and it's crazy, and it's weird, and it's just a circus freak show of everything going on. Well, the curtains wind down, and the show rounds up, and all that stuff is done, and we end up going back to my friend's cabin. And at the cabin, I'm sitting there talking face-to-face with Tech Nine, and looking over at the dinner table is most of the Strange Music label, and I look over, and the reason why I'm talking to Tech Nine is I'm standing there watching my friend, who happens to be a phenomenal cook, and he's making spaghetti. And my friend, who is my guest tonight, not only is he a phenomenal cook, he's a phenomenal musician, and he's a phenomenal director. And his name is Steve Shippey, a.k.a. Prozac. And even though he and I come from two very different worlds, we somehow managed to become friends. And I had no business being at the Gathering of the Juggalos. I'm not a Juggalo. And I wouldn't have been there if it wasn't for him. But I'm very grateful that he brought me along, because it was an experience. It was very eye-opening to just different things that are going on in the world. And over time, he and I became really good friends. I've known him now for about 15 years, and we have worked on several projects together. We'll get into that here. It's a movie series that we did of ghost hunting, and in fact, we pick up right with that. It's just very interesting to see that someone like him accepted someone like me as a friend of theirs, because here he is, a guy who has fans all over the world. He has, record labels that he's worked with. And here he is hanging out with some fat middle-aged white guy from Saginaw, Michigan. So it's an honor to know the guy. He's one of my best friends, and it's just been a very interesting ride over the years, and the ride is not done. So anyway, here is my talk with one of my best friends, Steve Shippey. So here we go.
Go to that platform, you can just have them in the studio performing that song with you, almost like some Ed Sullivan shit, you know what I mean?
That would be great. And then do it up with all MC Hammer type clothes and shit.
Totally.
I would love that. But oh man. So what are you doing right now?
Right now, I'm in my office staring at my computer and wanting to put my head through the screen because I'm sick of editing.
Gotcha. That's so how far are you into editing right now?
Not far enough. It's there's literally several hundred hours of investigation footage on here to go through and sift through and analyze and all that kind of stuff. So it's going to be an ongoing process throughout the summer, that's for sure.
Yeah. Well, I mean, I've sat there with you, and I know that's definitely a a pretty grueling, thing that goes on with having to trim, 100 hours worth of timeline down to a cohesive hour and a half.
Right, and then trying to go through everything. No matter what, you never really can go through every little piece of audio and video. It's just, you got to do the best you can.
Absolutely. That's and that's how many times have people like approached us afterwards saying, "Hey, we caught this thing," and it's like, "Wow, yeah, we didn't even notice that." Where something would happen, or you've got the one guy, I can't think of his name, who he ran a lot of the footage through different. Didn't you say he developed like a technology or something like that?
Yeah, he calls it Iroquois technology. Basically, he runs video through thousands of different filters, and then he kind of has one of these coined system as dynamic filtration. And that basically, I don't know the science behind it, and I don't, even pretend to know that kind of crazy physicist stuff. But basically, it analyzes video for muon particles and clusters of particles to identify that there is something there, and then they run it through thousands of different filters until they, something produces an image in those spots. But what's really interesting, though, is when you look at the raw video where his technology hits, you do kind of see that there is a weird anomaly there, even in the raw footage.
Yeah, well, I remember because for those listening, I was in the first 8 of them, and then this last one, this number 9, he actually shows up in it, and I remember watching the movie on Amazon and just being like, wow, yeah, he caught like it in the funeral parlor of the old house. It looked like a little girl.
Yeah. Yeah, no, he's caught a lot of really different things, a lot of interesting things. I think to me what's the most compelling is that you do see it in the raw footage, even with the naked eye. You see something, but then when he shows you the series of filters that he's running through and how it comes to life and the different formats or whatever, it's pretty interesting stuff. I feel like he's probably spent a long time developing that.
Oh yeah. That's and I do know what you mean. How you see it almost like a smoke or something like that, and then all of a sudden it's a defined figure when he runs it through that filter. It's
right.
Yeah, totally. It's pretty wild.
I think he's running it through every filter basically that's out there, and it makes sense. I mean, even on a simple level, like I'm talking just, let's get real simple, right? If you take a picture, you upload it to Instagram and you're playing with the filters, there's a little thing on there called structure, and if you crank that thing, there's stuff that'll pop out of the background in a picture that you never even saw.
True.
You know what I'm saying?
Yeah, no, I have seen that where, it's almost...
Especially a dim picture or a picture that's kind of taken in the dark, you crank that thing and all of a sudden you're seeing literally objects in the background that you couldn't see before. In fact, I was looking at one the other day, playing with a picture I was posting, and it's kind of dark, and when I cranked that thing, all of a sudden you could see a fire extinguisher and other things in the background that you could not see in the regular photo. So it's crazy how much data is actually in a picture or a clip of video if you know how to, to examine it and put it through different, filters programs, and whatever.
Totally. Well, and that makes sense. I mean, it's like you figure, well, one thing like there's those new Sony cameras that you can like shoot in really low light and then they can crank it way up. It's almost like how a cat's eye works. The cats can see in, different frequencies of light and thing like that. So maybe it's a case of, with the naked eye or with the cameras, essentially, quote unquote, naked eye, we're not seeing it, but it's, the camera technology is picking it up. So yeah, and then it just can filter that out. So
yeah, it's pretty interesting. I mean, he's got an interesting niche, that's for sure. I don't really know of anybody else out there doing that.
Yeah, I've never heard of anything like that. You don't see it on any of the shows or anything like that I'm aware of, at least. But so that brings up an interesting question then. So what got you wanting to do ghost hunting?
Well, I guess you could say a lot of different things. I grew up in a house, that was haunted when I was a kid. That basically started that voyage. And just, I've always been just kind of gravitated toward it. I mean, even little simple things. I remember, you remember those little books called Reader's Digest? Do you remember that shit?
Yeah, totally.
Well, back in the day, I remember reading one as a kid that had this story about putting a tape recorder in a graveyard and coming back the next day or hours later, picking it up and then listening to the tape to hear if there's voices caught on the audio. And to me, that was mind blowing because, you're reading this in like a publication. So, as a kid, I'm sitting there reading this like, well, this must be true because how else could it be printed, right? That's, what I'm saying? But,
yeah, totally.
But the crazy thing, though, is, trying it and, listening to it. And then, of course, at first, every little sound or every little noise you think certainly is this or certainly is that. But then you find that one gem that's without a doubt a voice, you know what I mean? That you can't really disprove or whatever. And so once I kind of caught things like that, that pretty much blew my mind. And then, of course, it kind of became I don't want to say an obsession, but then at that point, you're thinking, okay, well, what else can I find? What else can I catch? Who, what, why? And it's like an entire, paradox of mystery. You know what I'm saying?
Oh yeah. Well, I mean, it's a gateway to the other side. It's almost like you're looking through the peephole of that gateway. That door.
Yeah.
And that's. I remember a similar kind of thing happened to me unintentionally. I had my grandparents. One of them. I don't know if they necessarily died in the house, but they basically were dying in the house, and I think my grandfather might have died in the house. But anyway, we bought the house, and they had this little, and this is going to sound ridiculous, but they had this poodle, but there was a period where I kept having a lot of like weird noises happening and walking across the ceiling when I'd be downstairs, or this cat that would jump up. My cat would jump up on the couch next to me while I would watch TV, and there'd be a few times where it would feel like the cat jumped up on the couch next to me, and there was nothing there. And it was kind of like, and this again was, years before you and I were working on any of this stuff together. And but there was one time in particular that sticks out in my head. I was recording video of a different cat, and there was this like, how little yippy dogs sound. There's no mistaking when it's a little dog or a big dog. And I didn't hear the dog when I was recording the video. And when I played it back, I heard barking like it was in the room, clear as day. And it's like people think of ghosts being humans, and it's like I think animals can get stuck too. I mean, it was clear as day, as if the dog was in the room with me. And I remember opening the window, seeing if I could hear dogs barking in the neighborhood. Nothing, and it did. Besides, it would sound different if it was outside. It was right in the room with me. So, when you're doing that thing in the graveyard, and you're hearing, like you said, that gem, it's gonna stick out at you. The little clicks and the hisses and all those kinds of things and all that. Yeah, those might be things, those might not be. But you hear that one voice, you hear that one, EVP, and it will. And you're right, it starts an obsession. Then you start wondering, well, what else can I catch?
Yeah, it's funny you're talking about the animals. Seems like, I don't know, like the last year I've been hearing. I've never experienced that, but I've been hearing from people that that I'm working with, or I'm investigating their property, or interviewing or whatever, and this is oddly kind of becoming a thing that keeps popping up to me. In fact, I was looking at a location the other day, spent a lot of time with these people, and there's a couple of deaths that took place in this property, a suicide, a heart attack, a couple of other tragedies, and then oddly enough, everybody that we'll say works at this location all claim to hear a dog barking on the property. And it's just really bizarre because, you just don't really think of a dog or a cat when you're thinking of paranormal afterlife.
Exactly. But, they have a soul. Some people would think they don't, but I personally think animals have, a lesser evolved soul, but still a soul nonetheless. How could, who's to say that couldn't get trapped behind? Waiting
energy.
For its energy. Exactly. It's master coming back, something like that, And so it's
right.
Like,
well, if people believe, in residual hauntings, well, that to me, it would be exactly one and the same.
That makes sense.
Now, if you have an intelligent pet haunting, that would be pretty spectacular. If you can walk around a location and call for Bingo or whatever its name is. All of a sudden, you start hearing little feet prints coming, little footsteps coming up to you, and that would be pretty insane. So,
yeah, totally.
But
well, I'll tell you what. The one thing that with that poodle that I heard, his name was Pierre, because he's French poodle. But it
is
was
this a true story right now?
I swear to God, this is true. I'm not making this up. This happened.
The ghost of Pierre. I want to hear more.
So it was my cat, and I'm thinking, okay, well, it's a dog. And it's a cat that I'm shooting video of, and it just starts barking. And I'm like, I'm wondering if it wasn't an intelligent haunting from Pierre, my grandparents' little gray poodle.
Did Pierre like you or not like you?
I think Pierre didn't even know who I was, because my grandparents died. And honestly, that's part of the reason why I've been fascinated with death, is I've had death from very little. My first grandparents, all my grandparents and my dad were gone by the time I was 13. So,
Right.
but I didn't really know my this would be my mom's parents. I didn't really know them that well. I mean, they knew me, they knew of me. I'd met the dog a few times, but whether it liked me or not, I don't know. But it could have been barking at me. Who knows? But I ran that camera a whole bunch of other times without the cat, and I never caught the dog barking. So, it could have been coincidence. It could have been residual. Most likely it was residual. But I do say...
That's what I'm thinking, yeah.
Yeah, but I will say this. It was clear as day. I remember rewinding it like 10 times, being like, holy shit, how did this even happen? And opening the door, opening the window to the, I lived in my mom's basement, so yeah, it was one of those. But I was a kid at the time, so it's not so bad. Opening the window and hearing no dogs barking in the neighborhood, so the only thing I could think of is somehow I caught some, like you said, residual,
Ghost dog.
Ghost dog.
Is that a movie?
Yes. That's a what is his name? Oh God.
Forrest Whitaker.
Forrest Whitaker. Yes.
Yeah. I don't even know how I know that.
How do you know that? But I do remember once you said Ghost Dog, I'm like, holy shit, that's a movie.
That's awesome.
We should make Ghost Dog with this. With Pierre.
Ghost Dog. Tonight on a brand new episode of Ghost Dog.
Pierre was beloved by his owners, but Pierre had a tragic end.
Pierre's got like beef with somebody in the family that used to kick him around or something. Pierre kills him.
Dude, there's such a funny story about that dog. So this dog
cuts to interviewing the mailman. You know what I'm saying? Like the mailman still is attacked by the ghost of Pierre.
But he's got like the face covered up, and the voice doing this.
Every time I would deliver the mail to the house.
Oh God. No, that little dog though, that thing was a trooper. It lived to like 20 years old or something crazy. And I remember my aunt took the dog over to her house because I've got this aunt that's like an animal hoarder, and they would keep animals alive till they were, damn near a zombie. And this dog, when they had a kitchen, and the stairs went down to the basement, and I remember we were hearing and it was one of those little dogs that they like painted its toenails. It was just weird. And
this story's getting really fucking out of hand.
All I know is we heard like.
Are you still talking about Pierre?
I'm talking about Pierre. No, I'm talking about Pierre.
Yeah, well, that's probably why it's haunting somewhere. It was like kept alive till 25 years old. People were painting its toenails and shit.
No shit.
I mean, that's grounds for not resting in peace at this point.
Yeah, I think you might be onto something here. So who knows? That's holy shit. That's that little dog though. He was something else, man. He looked like a zombie by the time he died. He was rough looking, but. Yeah, he fell down the stairs, and he was missing half his teeth, and we just looked down the stairs, and he's, like, on his back. You know how little dogs are like hunchbacks will, like, sit on their back like a turtle? And
yeah.
he was just on his back, didn't even faze him. He was a trooper, man. But, no, that's interesting, though, that you've been interested in it in a while. I've been interested in it in a while. I always was fascinated by the concept of death. The finality of death. And that's, with whether it was pets or relatives or whatever. But I don't know why, but for some reason I am recalling our conversation. Well, hell, not even that. You remember our first experience with paranormal stuff together? It wasn't even with the hauntings.
No, I was shooting a music video.
Yeah, that's I love how you tell the story. Tell this story about how the kind of shit we found the night that happened. That was amazing. We still have it on video.
Well, the whole night was weird. I mean, like every little aspect of it was weird. I remember we got there to start shooting, and all of a sudden there's a blackbird flying around the house.
I remember that.
Which was pretty weird. We're all ducking and diving thinking it's a rabbit bat, and then we find out it's a blackbird, and then we're like, okay, well, how do we get this thing out of here? And then I'm like, okay, well, let's just go with it. Let it just make cameos in the video if it chooses.
Yeah.
And so I remember that whole thing. And then as we're trying to get lights and stuff set up and waiting for Mikey Clark to get there, all of a sudden we start hearing knocks and little weird sounds, faint sounds. People in the crew start getting scared. Your contact with the house starts telling us about a whole family that dies in there from carbon monoxide poisoning. So it's like, it just keeps getting weirder and weirder. And I'm just kind of like, okay, well, what's really going on at this point, you know?
Yeah. That's, well, continue.
Well, then I remember you and I we left to go get something to drink or whatever it was, or supplies. And we're driving back to the way I remember it, we're driving back to the location. We're pulling up in the driveway and we see this black figure go across the bay window in the front of the house.
Totally.
And then we're like, we're trying to figure out who it was because it looked too tall and too big to be most of the people that, that we knew were there. And then as we walk in, we start yelling out for everybody, and then they're all upstairs. So we go up there. Everyone's accounted for. So then it gets pretty bizarre at that point because, you and I both know what we saw.
Oh, yeah.
And because the living room had lights on and, we could clearly see the figure go right by. I mean, it wasn't like looking into a dark window and thinking you saw something. It was, blocking the light as it went past. And so then I remember we tried to continue at that point in the House of Horrors there. And we get maybe 15 minutes into setting up everything. And the next thing you know, we start hearing what sounded like, I don't know, dozens of dishes smashing, glasses breaking, stomping, utter chaos, and everyone's like freaking the hell out. And we're just standing there like, okay, now what do we do? Do we go downstairs and see intruders? I mean, is it paranormal? What is it?
Oh yeah, because the neighborhood we were in was not that great of a neighborhood either.
No, I was prepared, but I didn't know what I was getting into, and then I remember every time I would start to go to the staircase to come down, it would start smashing more and more stuff. Totally. And we were just kind of basically, playing chicken with this thing, and every time we'd go down a couple steps, it would create more chaos. And
do you remember the piano when it played the piano?
Oh yeah, of course. Yeah, the piano. The piano starts going boom, boom, boom. All this, it's insane. I mean, literally, like it's. To this day, I really can't help but wonder, like, did people break into the house while we were there and were playing some kind of weird joke on us? But all I can say about that, well, I'll say a couple things about that. Number one, that would be a pretty gutsy move to do.
Totally.
Because you don't know who you're encountering or...
You got it.
Or what, or what the situation may be. But to me, and I'm sure obviously this, rings in your mind, is when we finally go down there, there is absolutely nothing that explains the sounds.
Yeah, there was, and then we checked. I remember we checked the next day. There was no signs of forced entry, and the dishes. This is the thing that blew me away. Was the next day there were no dishes.
Yeah, that's what I'm saying. I mean, how would you explain? I mean, yeah, sure, the piano was there. Yeah, But how would you explain the sound of dozens and dozens of dishes and glasses and stuff breaking and smashing and falling over? But yet nothing is out of place.
Nothing was out of place. And remember, I do also remember when we went outside and we were all like, holy shit, that just happened. Then we started hearing that pipe smacking in the basement.
Right.
Like something hitting the pipe.
To me, I guess, I don't really know how else you would deem that, but paranormal, because I mean, what else would you say? I mean, if we went down there and legitimately saw a bunch of broken things, I mean, I guess you could still ponder whether it's paranormal or not.
Yeah.
But then it could be human at that point. But in this case, there was nothing to break.
Exactly. And it almost makes me wonder if there wasn't some kind of like, this one in particular, I've wondered if it isn't some kind of cross between a residual and an active. In other words, like maybe we were hearing, an argument that took place.
Well, I don't know, man, because to be honest with you, when we were pulling up and we saw that thing dart by as if it didn't want to be seen, and then the way that I remember it is every time we would say we're going to come down, it would go crazy. When we tried to go down a couple stairs, it would go crazy. So it was definitely like playing chicken with us or trying to scare or threaten us in some manner. Because
you're totally right. Yeah.
Only in conjunction with those things.
You're right. Yeah, and I remember I could still hear these words because I've watched the video a couple times since it's happened, and you were like, "We're coming down, and we come in peace." And it was like you led the way. And you're like, "Okay, follow me," and we just go right downstairs, and it was
it was insane. I really did. I thought we were either going to see some kind of crazy entity or something, or we were going to literally see some crazed like person that was wandering the streets that just decided that this is where he was going to go today.
Totally, yeah, exactly. And then we were going to have to deal with like some guy on PCP or something. Right.
I would have definitely pushed you down and ran at that point.
Pushed me into him. But that was it's funny because that was probably about 3 years before we even started talking about hauntings, about shooting the hauntings.
Yeah, about actually filming investigations. Yeah,
exactly, and that's and then there was the table talk, just where it's like we're gonna do this. Yep, that's another one of my favorite stories that you tell. You remember?
Yeah, I mean it was just the right time to do it. It's like with I don't know. I always believe that people would find our investigations interesting. And for years, people would say, well, you guys should film that or, whatever. And then I just remember finally saying, well, we can keep talking about it or we'll just do it.
Yeah.
And that's what we did. And also, it's interesting, too, that when it finally got accomplished, the first one that we actually filmed, I remember the Temple Theater, the guy running it was actually a cool guy and was honestly just looking out for us. But when he realized that we wanted to premiere it there, he thought we were insane because he wanted to remind us that it had 2,000 seats, over and over again. And then finally we were like, yeah, you're right. That's not enough. We need two nights. We need 4,000 seats, of course.
I love this story too.
And I remember the look on his face, and he, I don't know, he probably gave us maybe 20 more warnings at that point. And we went ahead and said, let's do it. And I remember the crazy thing is when I brought it to the local media and as far as like, well, not just the local media, but as far as advertising, cable, radio, and they were like, okay, great. How many weeks do we have until the event? And I was like, well, less than 2. And I remember they just kind of looked at me as if, I was very insane for that. And then I started to doubt myself a little bit, like, yeah, maybe this was a bad idea. And so then I remember we start promoting it, start pushing it. It's radio, cable.
Dude, it was a mega blitz of all kinds of media advertisement.
Yeah, everything that I could possibly think of. And I remember we were 4 days until the event, and out of 4,000 tickets, we had sold 302. And that's when I realized an epic mistake had been made, and I should have heeded the warnings of everybody around me.
Yeah.
And so at that point, it just was what it was, and all the advertisement was paid for, and everything was going to run its course. And I just kind of, accepted defeat on that, and went about my way, waiting to get through the week. And then all of a sudden, I got a frantic phone call from the theater, and the guy's like, trying to tell me something. He's like, I got to go. There's people lined up 2 blocks, blah 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 blah. And I'm like, what is this guy talking about? You know what I'm saying? And I thought he was joking, and I was going to be pissed, if he was. And so I literally got in my car and I drove there. And as I'm walking up to the theater, I'm passing this line of people trying to figure out what they're doing or whatever. And, at this point, none of those people knew who I was yet.
Yeah.
And so I just kind of sat in the box office and I'm listening to them, and they're saying, 2 tickets or 6 tickets, 8, 4, whatever, haunting on Hamilton Street. And I'm going, wait a minute, are these people here for my film, or like, is everybody here? So, and everybody keeps looking at me that works there with this look on their face, like, holy shit. And then I realized that's what's happening. And, so I tried to talk to the guy, and he was so busy he couldn't talk. And then later on that night, I got a report that we had sold, I think, 600 tickets. And then, the last couple days, that number doubled, tripled, quadrupled, and everything sold out, C per C.
Yeah. Has
ever since for 10 years.
For 10 years, exactly. And didn't he say something like that had that was unprecedented.
Yeah, absolutely. Yeah, no, in fact, we put him on the spot and pulled out cameras, and we're like, say it on camera, and he's like, you know, and the whole thing was insane. If you remember, dude, the premiere itself, like, you know, nobody believed that it could do this, so the staff wasn't prepared. They didn't have
not at all
nearly enough staff members, and I remember the manager of the place, the general manager, he was the director of the theater, came running up, his tie is crooked, he's got sweat all over his forehead, and he's just looking at me, and I go, hey man, you know, it's packed, you know, the show hasn't even started yet. I said, how's it going? And he's like, oh, good. No, it's fucking going great. We got people sitting in the aisles. We got people coming in all the doors, you know. It's just wonderful, you know what I mean? And I just looked at him, and I was like, yeah, isn't it great? I told you. And I just kind of walked away, you know.
I can't remember, was that the one that we got that nickname for?
Yeah.
I love it. What's the nickname? I love the nickname.
Wait, which nickname?
I'm thinking of the one you call Pit Boss.
Oh, no.
Oh,
that was actually, that was John.
Oh, that was John. Oh, that's right. Yeah, so he was the manager. Pit Boss, he's a whole nother character.
Yeah, that's a whole nother story right there. But yeah, I mean, dude, I've never seen this guy so disheveled in my life. You know what I'm saying? Like, it literally, it was comical. It looked like he'd been through a war. You know what I'm saying? And the movie hadn't even begun yet.
And that's what's so great is it's like, this is what these guys should want. They should want a packed house, and it happened to them, and they didn't know what to do because it never happened before.
They just weren't prepared. You know, they didn't have the right staff, and then when they were scrambling at the last second to get enough staff, people were like, oh, well, you know, today's my day off, or I wasn't scheduled, whatever. It's not like people are usually eager to jump right into that part-time gig, you know?
Yeah, exactly.
So they had no choice but to deal with it. I thought it was great.
Oh, yeah. Well, it was kind of a friendly I told you so. You know,
right.
Without doing that. And that wasn't necessarily a thing, but it was a case of you got what you wanted. It's not your fault that they didn't know how to handle it. You know?
Exactly.
So
yeah. But then, you know, that was the start of it, and then everybody was like, oh, well, man, you know, could that have been a fluke? Will they come back? You know, all that stuff. And then the second year sold out faster, and the rest, you know, and on with the continuation of that progression.
Oh yeah, yeah. And that's something that I always found interesting was everybody. The first, how many movies did you go with in the movies even just referred to as Prozac?
Well, the majority at this point, still the majority, I think.
Yeah, that's true, because people who come in as guests and investigators and that still refer to you as that. But it's fun. I remember when I found out that most of the Haunting fans, well, not most of them, but a good number of them had no idea you even do music.
No, I'd say it's fair. It's fair to say the majority, I would say.
True. And so it's like, and they're just like, oh yeah, his Prozac, and they didn't even think anything of it. They didn't think of it as a stage name or anything like that. I just thought it was interesting, you know, how they have it's like two different worlds in your life that you know, and you've got success in one and success in the other. I've always found that interesting and fascinating. But
you know what I think is, like, out of all those thousands of people that we're referring to, I just would love to know, like, what the hell were they thinking when they, you know, like, and I don't mean the fact that they should have known about my music, obviously, but just, you know, you'd have to be like, who the hell would name their kid that? You know what I mean? Like where is this guy from? You know what I mean? Like, did the people not know that, you know, and they're probably doing the math of my age and going, well, you know, I mean, that technically that would be before the drug was invented, but how bizarre. You know, poor bastard.
Maybe it's Ukrainian for, you know, blessed or something.
Right. I should come up with a whole story about, you know, I don't know. But I've always wondered, though, legitimately, like, what went through their minds, you know, when they were just kind of like, well, that must be his first name. I don't know.
But exactly. It always struck me as interesting and kind of funny because, same kind of thing of, you know, did they think that was your name or what, you know, but, it's just, it's
and
funny.
You know what? Nobody ever asked me. That's what always freaks me out. Is like nobody ever asked me. You know what I'm saying? Like, and you're talking like in 10 years, dude. You're talking like, well, I mean, just at the premieres alone, you're talking like 40,000 people. I mean, sure, some of them are repeaters, but like,
oh yeah,
nobody would ask. Like, you know, you got, you know, here this guy's Steve, and this guy's Josh, and this guy's Tim, and this guy's Kenny, and this girl's Jamie, and here's Prozac. but nobody ever asked me.
Yeah, no, I've never seen it. I've never witnessed anybody even asking, and no one ever asked me. No one ever asked me what's the story with why is his name Prozac? Nothing like that. They just, like you said, they just took it at face value.
Dude, the first person that does, I'm just gonna totally blow their mind. You know what I mean? I'm just gonna tell them some crazy ass story, and then I'm gonna like break down into tears, and I'm gonna like throw the autograph table against the wall, and
I should pay somebody to like just ask them. We'll get it on video.
You want to know?
Oh God, that's great. But yeah, just come up with a breakdown in tears. No, yeah, it's just fascinating to me. That's no it's one of those things I've often wondered, and I'm like, and I think I might have even meant to ask you, did anybody ever ask you? And I just forget because I just assume, well, they just go with it. So
right,
but
it doesn't matter what your name is.
No. But so okay, now I'm going to ask the question that I've also want to know, and this is I want to get your theory. So, what do you think? And I know I'm switching gears here. Hell, one of my guests I asked, that was the first question I asked. What do you think happens when we die?
Well, that's I don't even know that I could even answer that, but of course I'll definitely give you theories. Like, to be real honest with you, I don't know. I mean, I'm not one of those people that, I think some people, they have theories and then they marry themselves to those theories and they kind of stand, but I don't know how the hell anybody could really believe that they have it figured out. Now,
thank you. Exactly.
In my opinion, of course, I very much believe that it's not the end of a person.
Totally.
And not to sound, what's the word, talking pointish and say, residual haunting and intelligent haunting. But those hallmarks, those stereotypes, if you want to call it, of paranormal activity seems to definitely reign true. I mean, I know I've witnessed things that have happened in front of me that I don't believe what I saw had anything to do with me, nor could it interact with me, nor could I have interacted with it or changed the scenario of what happened. And I've also had the opposite happen. Now, so of course, then there's theories about that, and it depends on who you ask. I mean, if it's
Absolutely.
People that are strong in the Christian faith, they're going to tell you that anything that takes place, in this realm is all to be inhuman, which, basically means evil or something that has never lived on the earth, and that communicating with these things is not a good idea. And then there's people that believe that, that spirits, for whatever reason, can be trapped here on earth, whether it be unfinished business, not willing to go into the light, if you want to call it that.
Yeah.
Many different theories. And then, of course, there are some people that just believe in energy, period, that souls are energy, people are energy. Then they kind of go into the, the long explanation of it can't be created nor destroyed, so it must go somewhere. But I think if you kind of melt all of that into a pot of paranormal, I think all of it is true to some degree. They're all pieces of a puzzle that none of us are remotely able to understand.
Yeah, and that's absolutely. I completely agree. I definitely don't think when you're dead it's over. And again, from the whole energy standpoint and everything, but just like you said, we have seen too much crazy stuff to say, okay, there's something beyond this realm of reality.
Right. Well, but here's the other thing too. Like when you look at the title of your podcast, when you're using that word death, it's a word that obviously all of us know and many of us fear, and it's the great unknown. But then you also have to look at the word birth, and so here's the real question. And maybe I sound insane for saying this, but is death the finality of human life, or is it just part of the evolution process? I mean, if you take a child that's in the womb and when it's born, how traumatic is that? Everything changes basically, how it functions, how it survives in the womb.
True.
And then when it's born, so how do we know that death isn't just another step of the continuation of whatever we are or whatever it is?
That's an interesting concept. Yeah, because up until the baby's born, its whole existence, its whole life has been in the womb.
Right.
So in a
Absolutely.
sense, yeah, birth is a death to that existence.
Right.
Yeah, I never thought of it that way. I dig that concept because it's and so for all we know, death is just a metamorphosis of the spirit. To use an analogy I've heard, we're like a caterpillar, and when you die, you become the butterfly. Death is like the cocoon or whatever.
Yeah, maybe this is just part of the process. You have to live on Earth because if you want to look at it and say, okay, well, what is a soul? What is a spirit? Me personally, I would have to think, especially from what I've seen and witnessed, and what history kind of tells us in the field, that a ghost or a spirit retains the knowledge that it had while it was living, because obviously these things are able to interact with you, answer questions,
True.
Open doors, so on and so forth. So maybe life itself, mortal life, is that's your time of gathering knowledge, gathering information.
Interesting. Yeah.
It's just kind of part of the evolution of it. Again, that's just a theory. Nobody will have the answers until you're all on the other side of the veil.
Exactly.
Really.
I say it's kind of like nature's biggest joke. It's like you don't get the punchline until you're dead.
Right.
You don't know. No one, any of the religions, any of the faiths and things like that, some people think they've got it, and some people completely, truly believe that, and that's fine. But no one can be 100% certain until they're dead. And by that point, they got the answers. And, if they're either trapped here or something because they have, like we said, unfinished business or something like that, or they've gone, hey, fuck this, I'm out of here, and they go to wherever else is next.
Yeah.
And
here's the thing, maybe it's not the same for everybody.
And that's absolutely, one of my previous guests had said that. They're like, death could be different for everybody's experience. And that's one thing where, some people...
life, let's talk about life. Life is different for everybody.
That's a very good point. We didn't touch on that, yeah.
It's people's life, I think life largely, how about this? I don't think I know that life is largely perception. So
totally,
how you react to things, how you spend your time, how you focus. I could go on forever, but how you conduct your life and how you operate your time and what you're doing will differ you from other people. And obviously, when you look at the hundreds of millions, the billions of people on the planet, it's life is different for everybody. Sure, there's a lot of people that have similarities and same ideals, thoughts, motivations, work ethic.
True.
But at the same time, so maybe it's something like that as well, that, when you get to that other side, if you want to call it the other side, or maybe it's just existing, in plain sight that we don't see or hear.
Absolutely. It could be another dimension or something like that.
Yeah. Why couldn't it be?
Totally.
Obviously we know that there's several levels to this that scientists know exist. And even, the most intelligent people in the world with the most cutting edge knowledge of it, they still don't know. And they know that. We don't know shit.
We don't know shit. That's exactly it.
Right. It's funny because the most intelligent people in so many fields at the end of the day will tell you that, they'll blow your mind with knowledge that, and it is fascinating, but then at the end of the day, they always kind of say something like, but in the long scheme of things, we don't know shit.
Yeah, that's exactly it. We don't know enough to know what we don't know. You know what I mean? It's
yeah, and who knows, how far mankind is from even acquiring that information or even being able to understand that. For all we know, we're not even tadpoles in this world yet.
Absolutely. That's and that's we could be so far down on the evolutionary chain, but we're egotistical enough to think that we're the pinnacle of evolution. And for all we know, like you said, we're a tadpole. Our whole existence and our whole evolution, on the grand scheme of things, is just one blip on a series of 100 steps.
Yeah, 100%.
Yeah, that's a very cool concept. Yeah, that's
yeah. So it's so hard to to really have an opinion about okay, well, what is your belief? I mean, definitely, I do believe that that people continue on. I don't even know how to even explain in what fashion that is.
Absolutely.
But I think there's enough documentation and experiences to prove that there are things out there that we certainly can't explain, and it's and I know that, obviously, but what are these things? Nobody knows. Nobody knows for certain. And and even when you're talking to a spirit, or you're attempting to communicate, or you get a voice, or it knocks back in conjunction with what you're asking it to do, even when you think you have answers, like you talk to all these people. In fact, this last case, it happens more often than not. They start telling you, well, I was playing a Ouija board, or I was trying to communicate in this fashion, and it was telling me that its name was this, and that it was male, female, that it was this old, and all, but how do you know who you're talking to?
Yeah, I mean, if it's something that's moving, moving the board, it could be, yeah, you're right. Who knows? Who knows who you're talking to?
Right. Yeah, so there, even though sometimes things fit together so beautifully in a package, and a person says, well, this is Grandma Sue's house, and she died here, and I smell her perfume, and I catch glimpses of her, and I know that she's there. Maybe she's not. Maybe something else is there. It's interesting. When you talk to people of faith, and you hear their opinions that it's not possible. To some religious sects. That,
absolutely.
So then at that point, who are you talking to, and is somebody trying to trick you basically into, continued communication for some reason or some ultimate goal or whatever the case may be? I guess at the end of the day, it's good to kind of really keep your mind open to all the possibilities.
Oh yeah, yeah.
Just when you think you have it figured out, I think is number one where you quit learning.
And that's exactly it. That's absolutely right. And honestly, I think as a species, I think we're on the verge of having some kind of like an industrial revolution, but in terms of a metaphysical level. You know what I mean? Where all of a sudden we're going to learn something about our existence that's going to blow everybody's minds. At least the people who are willing to accept it. Right. And that's, but yeah, with the whole smelling perfume and things like that, maybe it is something trying to play a trick, and as if they wouldn't have known what the perfume smelled like, or that you wouldn't recognize that perfume, or whatever. So yeah.
Hey, I'm not saying it's aliens, but
yeah, it's but you know what? That's something I was talking with somebody about today about humanity in general. Is people sit there and think there's 7 billion people, and there's been, I think it's like almost the same amount of people have ever lived in existence. So let's say 14, 15 billion people, and there's so many people and so much, and it's like, but to sit there and downplay each individual person in reality in terms of our existence, and in terms of the vastness of space, and how empty space is, and how many planets that we've, granted, we've only really been able to investigate even minutely 9 planets that are around, well, 8 if you don't count Pluto anymore, but the planets that are in our solar system and neighboring ones.
What the hell happened to Pluto?
It died.
Damn it.
Yeah, no, but they downgraded it from it was a planet, and then I heard an interesting fact that it takes Pluto something like 260 years or something like that to circle the sun, and it didn't even get a quarter of the way through from the time it became deemed a planet to where it got downgraded to a mini planet or whatever the hell they call it. But the fact of the matter is that with so much vastness of space, the fact that every person, I think, is special. They may not act that way sometimes, but it's such a rare commodity to have life. And for it to just be snuffed out when it's done, I don't think that's possible.
Yeah, no, I don't think it's possible either. I really don't. Again, it's just, I think you got to look at experiences, and you got to also look at the weird hive mind of people too that, I mean, look at how many weird things that we don't understand that, to me, I don't know. I mean, I think certain things are paranormal and
Oh, yeah.
that don't have to be, a ghost or an apparition or something of that nature, but even just, basic human phenomenon. I mean, it's like that age-old thing that, that you remember your parents saying, like, oh, that's so weird. Remember we were just talking about Johnny the other day, and then he calls.
Yeah, totally. Those kinds of...
I mean, that stuff has been going on since, like, as far as anybody can remember. You talk about an old friend or you think about somebody or whatever, and then all of a sudden, 10 years go by since you haven't talked to them, but, that day you thought of them, and then boom, they call you out of the clear blue.
Exactly. I think there's a connection. Like, what did you call it?
Totally.
A hive kind of thing?
Yeah, it's kind of like the hive mind of people.
Absolutely.
It's like we're connected somehow, on some frequency or something. And I think a lot of times we're not even aware of it, but we're reacting to that.
Oh yeah. Well, I mean, in fact, now that you mention it, once you said consciousness, I have heard of a thing referred to as collective consciousness, which would be a hive mind.
So, like, right now we're talking about, was it Pierre?
Pierre, yes. Please tell me something.
Yeah, so, exactly. So tonight, while you're sleeping and all of a sudden you start getting attacked by a pissed-off dog with painted toenails and missing teeth and a hunchback, it's because you basically conjured Pierre by talking about him. Not that I want that to happen. I
just had that visual.
Dude, that is... I want an artist to paint me a painting of Pierre, and I would put that on my fireplace straight up. Because that dog sounded like a hero. It sounded like he went through way too much that he did not need to go through.
He totally did, man. I mean, he literally... The
untold story of Pierre, just lost in the wisps of a Michigan night and unknown to the masses.
He would be like if he was alive today, he'd be like an angry cat or one of those kinds of, one of those, like one of those animals that they basically take their affliction and then like monetize it.
YouTube sensation.
Yes. Oh boy. Well, I guess we could wrap it up on that note. Anyway, man, I'm glad you were able to, I know you've got a crazy, crazy busy schedule. I only had a taste of it this year, but definitely, I appreciate you calling and, taking the time out to chat. But, I'm looking forward to the premiere, and I've seen parts of this movie, and I got to tell the viewers who, watch for The Haunted Saginaw, and you can catch them on YouTube, and this one's definitely pretty wild. So, but any last words you'd like to tell people?
Pierre. Dude, I can't get Pierre out of my mind. I mean, it's been circling my thoughts the whole time we've been talking. I'm just had this mental picture of this, like, crazed dog with painted nails, almost like, I'm hearing the soundtrack of Silence of the Lambs going.
Dude, I'm telling you, if I can find a picture, I'm going to email it to you out of the blue.
Dude, you know what? I would beg you not to, because nothing would compare to the mental picture that I have. You know what? You doing that would be like, like when you're like as a kid, you watch all these shows and there's always that voiceover guy that's like, it was an October night, and then you look him up one day, like, who's the guy that does that voiceover? And you're like, this sucks. You know what I mean? Like, it's just ruined forever. So please don't ruin Pierre for me.
I won't.
I'm getting a tattoo of my interpretation of Pierre.
Pierre.
And it's all going to stem from this.
I love it. If you do that. Oh, my God. If you got just a little tiny tattoo of Pierre, that would be incredible.
Dude, that'd be more than incredible. Where is Pierre buried? Do we know that?
You know what? I don't know. I mean, I know my grandparents are buried in that cemetery on, what is it, out on...
Gratiot?
No. They're way down, like almost heading to Bridgeport.
Oh, okay.
Yeah.
Now, what are you trying to say? You think Pierre is out there?
Maybe. Maybe we should, they might have buried him with them. I don't know. I have no idea.
That's creepy.
I don't know if they can.
You're just taking this story to another level. I don't even want to talk about it because I don't even know what's next. You're like, oh yeah, Pierre's buried with my grandparents.
Buried at their feet. Yeah, in fact, they spread his ashes over.
It just cuts to me in the middle of the night with a shovel. I'm just digging around people's backyards.
Like looking for Jimmy Hoffa, but it's Pierre.
Find Jimmy Hoffa and be like, God damn it, I'm looking for you. Don't even care. Just shovel the dirt back over him. Keep going.
Oh, my God. Holy shit. Okay. Well, I guess now on that note. Dude, all I've done is laugh during this thing.
Well, that's because you've been plotting for years to just fucking unveil this Pierre story on me. I mean, that's probably why you're laughing. You know what I mean? Like, my God, all the things all the conversations I've had with you, you've held this in for like over a decade.
How have I held this one in? No shit. How did Pierre
way more than a decade?
Yeah.
15, 16 years, 17 years. And now all of a sudden Pierre's just alive and well in your mind.
Yes, it just can't. Well, you know me with my memory, man. It's been locked in a chamber for
Who's in the studio with you right now?
Just me.
I was going to say, if anyone's with you right now, they're probably just listening to this shit too. They're probably affected by it. They're probably, if Chris was in there right now, he'd be on his phone just like looking up counseling and shit, you know, on his iPhone. I think I would be. I mean,
you know what? I'm gonna have to do a drawing of Pierre. I'm gonna put that on my Facebook.
Dude, please.
I'm gonna do a cartoon of Pierre. He's gonna become my mascot.
If you do that when the doors open at the premiere for the hour before the film starts, we'll just put that on the screen. And we'll put like those awful transitions on it, and you know what I'm saying, so it like kaleidoscopes, and you know what I mean, and we'll just let people trip out to Pierre.
Oh my God, like those iMovie, those simple, like the basic transitions. That would be great.
Totally, just let it go, whatever the default is.
Oh God.
That would be amazing. Get some special effects people to create like a costume of Pierre, and then that takes 2 people to wear it and have them run down the aisles in the middle of the film.
Dude, yes, Pierre becomes Haunted Saginaw's unofficial mascot.
He just dives on people during the, you know what I mean, popcorn flying, screams.
Right during a tense moment. Oh,
absolutely.
God. Dude, my throat hurts. So, oh, boy. Wow. Oh, okay, well. I want to keep talking about Pierre.
I'm not going to quit thinking about Pierre, I can tell you that much. Dude, it's when you think about it, it's insane. Like, picture this 25-year-old dog with, like, no teeth. It's been thrown downstairs. Its back is broke. It's got painted nails. It's being kept alive by, people that think it's doing it in a favor. The dog probably tried to kill itself. How do you know it didn't throw itself down the fucking stairs?
No shit.
It's a thought.
No shit. And it was
funny.
Probably
like trying to end it. It was probably like just, I regret nothing, and then it just lived, and got painted up more. And if they painted its toenails, you don't think they did shit to its fur and its hair, and they probably groomed it all weird and put bows on it.
It did have. I remember it did have a bow. I'm almost positive it had a bow at one time.
Stop it!
I'm not kidding you. When it was younger. Oh God, I wish I could find that photo. My mom had a photo with my grandparents, and they had the little dog. It was
all right. Here's something we haven't thought of. How do we know there's not literally offspring of Pierre?
No shit. There could be great grandchildren of Pierre out there somewhere wanting revenge.
Right. Well, shit. Not even if it lived fucking 25 years. You know what I'm saying?
Yeah, that's true.
It's probably just its kid.
Yeah. At this point. Damn.
Deep thoughts. You should do a podcast about Pierre.
Pondering Pierre.
Or at least from now on, just start addressing every one of your guests and just tell them this story before you even start. So it just totally fucks up their mind the whole time. Just find a way to sneak it in, just be like, yeah, so, thanks for being on the show. And, before we get it, I once, my grandparents had a dog, and then just go into the story about Pierre and go into explicit detail about the painted nails, the suicide attempt,
Suicide attempt.
The whole thing that you believe it's buried at your grandparents' feet, and then be like, but anyway, so what's your thoughts on the afterlife?
And they're just like,
Yeah, make sure you have production insurance before you do that, because someone's going to lose their shit.
No shit.
Just saying.
Oh my God, dude, I'm going to come up with some kind of thing for Pierre, and I'm going to just send it to you. And it's
we need that.
Yes. I think I might have a picture of Pierre now that I think about it. I think there's a picture that my brother gave me, but this was before Pierre became a zombie. This was when he was like still fairly young, so it's not the same.
I'll see the real Pierre in that picture.
Yes, totally. If I can find that photo, I'm sending it to you. But
let's do a documentary. That's one thing we can do.
A documentary about Pierre?
Yes.
Interview all my uncles. They're all in their 80s now.
Everybody. Just interview everybody we can, collect all the information that we can, try to find the EVP of Pierre barking. Get reenactments of the suicide attempts. Somebody will dress up in the costume and throw themselves down the stairs.
What was great though is you got me wondering if it wasn't a suicide attempt, because when he fell down, we all heard him fall, and then we looked down the stairs and he's just sitting there and he's like licking his lips, just looking at us like, yeah,
because he was pissed. He was like,
probably
God
pissed.
Damn it.
I bet you're right.
He looks up and sees you guys. He knows he's going to get painted up again. He knows it's not over. He's going to go get taken to the vet and get a shot of cortisone, and his life continues.
Gonna continue.
I bet you he was so pissed at that moment.
Painted up again? Oh, God, dude, I'm sweating. I'm laughing so hard I'm sweating. Ah, shit. Anyway, this was great. Holy cow. Well, I can hardly breathe. I'm laughing so hard, dude. I wonder how much I can even use. I love it though. I'm gonna send you a Pierre picture. I'm gonna work on that. That's gonna be my mission. I
do need that.
I'm gonna just send it to you. I'll make them all like devil dog kind of thing, but it'll be Pierre. So, but cool, man. Yeah, no, but I do appreciate you taking the time though, man.
Oh, for sure.
Cool. So, yeah, keep me posted on everything, all the developments and that. I want to definitely check out more of the footage when you get more stuff. We'll do like we said, set up a way for me to watch it, because I really was digging it.
Right. The premiere is going to be the last weekend in October, 25th, 26th, Temple Theater.
Awesome. So, anything else that you'd like to let the listeners know?
I wish I could. I definitely have something in the works right now that's going to be a big move, and but I just got to kind of figure out how that works. I don't think I can really unroll that just yet, but as soon as I'm able to, I'll definitely hit you up, and maybe we can do a Pierre part 2.
I'm down. I love it. Yes, let's do Pierre part 2. I love it. Cool, man.
Seriously.
I love it. So, well, hey, man, I will definitely talk to you soon. I thoroughly enjoyed this. So this worked out really well. So, and we got some cool things. You gave me a lot to think about, though. Seriously. So some very cool concepts, and that's what I was hoping, is that to get your take on what happens. So you gave me some interesting concepts to ponder. So, well, cool, man.
Well,
what's that?
I gave you some insight. You gave me Pierre.
And I think Pierre.
I don't know if I won or I lost, because now I'm tainted with this story and this suicidal canine karma, and what I mean. I feel compelled to. Now I have to do a documentary, or maybe I'll be cursed or some shit. I don't know.
Even a mini documentary is a special feature on one of the DVDs.
Absolutely. Special feature to play at the premiere.
Yes. People will be like, what the fuck? And then
I'll just be like, go with it.
Then we send the dog costume down the aisle.
Absolutely, just diving on people.
Oh, God. Okay. I want to see where this goes.
I'm afraid to. So let's, we better stop right now and save some for the next time, because I feel like we're going to conjure something we don't want to.
Totally. Well, cool, man. I will.
Weird vibes.
Yeah. I will talk to you soon.
Okay.
Okay, later, man. Bye. Thanks. Bye. Holy shit. Wow. And that was my fun talk with Steve Prozac Shippey. And you can find Steve's music on iTunes or anywhere that they sell music. And that's Prozac, Prozak. I definitely recommend listening to that. As for Haunted Saginaw, check that out on HauntedSaginaw.com or on our Facebook, Haunted Saginaw. We've got movies up on Amazon Prime. They're free with a membership. And we've got some exciting news. There's a new movie coming out this year on November 15th and 16th in Saginaw, Michigan at the Temple Theater. Check that out. We got some other exciting news. But in the meantime, have yourself a good day and have yourself a good life.